Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Roar. Today, I want to talk a little bit about perception and how changing your perception can change your life. Okay, but before we get started, hey everybody, my name's Greg Storch. I'm founder of Lion Enterprise, which is a leadership development and coaching business. I am a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, and a certified professional coach as well. Hey, so let's get this party started on this mid-November hump day. I thought I'd start out today by talking about what perceptions really are. I like to describe perception as the way something's regarded, understood, or interpreted. Okay, regarded, understood, or interpreted. That's pretty interesting to me. So this is our own senses looking at a situation or an object or whatever, and then we develop what we think we understand, know, and see. Why is that? It's because we've developed these lenses throughout our lifetimes. They were crafted, these lenses that we wear, they're crafted by our families, our friends, the place we grew up, the schools we attended. All of the influences throughout our lives have crafted the way we look at the world, the lenses through which we look. Now, I talked about this in my weekly email earlier, and I was talking about perception and how because we are all different, we can observe the exact same thing, but see something completely different than another person looking at the same object or the same circumstances. I was in Milan on Monday and I noticed these artists. Actually, I only noticed one at first. There was a guy sketching this little cathedral, which is right next door to the restaurant we were having lunch at. And I'm watching this guy sketch, and I'm just looking down at a guy doing artwork, which is common around Italy. I mean, there's artists everywhere. But then I look across the street and I see another artist sketching. And then I look over to my right and I see a third artist sketching, and they're all facing this cathedral. They're all sketching away, and I see a guy walking around helping them. I'm assuming that's the art teacher. So when we left, they're still down there sketching, so I kind of nonchalantly walked behind them and kind of looked over their shoulders at their sketches. Each one of their sketches was drawn from a different perspective. It was based on the way they were seeing the building. Now, all three artists were sketching the same exact cathedral, but each of their drawings were vastly different. And those sketches were different because the differences were in the artist's perceptions. So that's the whole point, right? Each one of us is unique, and we have our own perspective of things, our own opinions of things. You know, speaking of perspective, I wanted to share this story with you guys today. It reminds me about a time when I was on active duty in the Navy. I served in Navy medicine, and if you don't know, Navy medicine supports the Marine Corps. They don't have their own medical support, so when they deploy, the Navy medical people deploy with them. As the company commander of a surgical company, I was reporting to a Marine Corps major. And we were in Saudi Arabia in August, nonetheless. We were in the desert, and it was hot. It was probably over 130 degrees Fahrenheit, kind of hot. Anyway, medical out in the field had tents that had air conditioners attached to them. And that way, if we needed to treat heat casualties, we had a way of cooling them down. So anyway, this major comes to me and says, don't be sleeping in the tent with the AC because none of my Marines have tents with AC, and I don't want them to have the perception, a different perspective of the Navy versus the Marine Corps. But then he went on to say something that haunted me for years, and he said, remember, Storch, perception is reality. And for years, I battled that very common phrase. You've probably heard the phrase before, right? I've heard it so many times. Perception's reality. But I challenge that phrase. Is perception reality? Or is perception your reality? That doesn't make it true or correct for me. It only makes it true and correct for you because of the lens. Your lenses aren't my lenses. The way you're seeing it, your perspective of it is different than mine. So it's not reality, but it's your reality. So I've always modified. Anytime I hear somebody say, perception's reality, I say, no, perception is your reality. I feel a lot of times that people have a perception of their own lives that don't serve them well. And they wonder why life hasn't turned out quite the way they wanted it to be. They feel like they're stuck, or they have to accept things for the way they are. And of course, it's just as easy to stay in that place, right? It takes effort to change your perception. Changing your perception also requires accountability. It requires you to accept that you have the ability to make choices and you have the ability to change, and not blame others for where you are in life. I love that thing where they say, like, remember, when you point a finger at me, you're pointing 3 at yourself. That always killed me. Anyway, let me get back on track here. You are what you think. In other words, you are what you perceive. If you only think about problems and focus on the negative, that's exactly what you'll attract in your life. But if you change your perspective and start thinking about solutions to problems and finding the opportunities in adversity, then that's the kind of stuff you'll attract into your life. I get that we don't always choose or control what happens to us in our lives. I get that. But the way we see and react to what happens in our lives, that's what makes the difference. That's the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. It's the choice they make on how they view the things that are happening in their lives. They aren't a victim, they're the victor. So we all have choices. We can be happy or sad. We can complain. Or, like Eric was talking about this morning on Success Life Live, we can express gratitude. We can smile or frown, be productive, or we can procrastinate. But just remember that you always have a choice, and it begins by changing the way you look at things happening in your life, by changing perspective. It takes a lot of courage, determination, and action to actually change the way you're looking at things. Because remember, you've grown up your entire life with all of this influence. You have things here in your head, in your mind, that make you want to see things in certain ways. So it does take courage to change, and it takes action to change your perspective. And it's not an overnight process. It will take time to recondition that brain and change the lenses through which you view the world. retrain your brain and you train it to view things in the most positive and beneficial way, then things will start to reflect that way. So anyway, there's always a positive and a negative side to life, right? The thing is, it's pretty damn easy for us to focus on the negative stuff. For most people, that's the problem. They focus on the negative. But the great news is that you get to choose which side you want to focus on. You get to choose which way you want to focus. It's simply a matter of shifting your perspective. So if you feel like you need a different perspective on things, if things aren't going that great and you find like your perspective's teetering more towards negative perspectives, you're going to attract negative things in your life. So I'm going to talk to you about a few ways that you can change or start to shift your own perspective. The first thing is try to focus on the lesson and not the issue. So we may not be able to control our circumstances, but we do control the choices we make. Try to find the silver lining in every situation, even if the situation isn't that great. That's just the positive mindset, right? We're talking about changing perspective so you can change your life. So even though we may not be able to control our circumstances, we control the choices we make. And so it's good to look for the silver lining in everything, even when you don't think there is one, because it's not that great of a situation. Take each problem and circumstance as a positive opportunity to change and evolve. What's the lesson? What can you learn from this? What is this circumstance trying to teach me here? Listen, at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. I get it. You either have to find the reason yourself why that thing's happening, or it's going to come clear to you over time. And maybe you might learn the lesson just a little bit too late. The second thing you can do, the next thing you can do, is remember that positive attracts positive. Smile and the world smiles with you, right? Somebody famous said that, and I have no idea who it is. Gratitude plays a major role here in positive attracting the positive. Expressing gratitude every day will boost your positive attitude in tons of different ways. And I want to say expressing gratitude properly, and if you want to know how to do that, go to Eric G. Reed's Facebook page, Success Life Coach, and look at his blog on today's, he goes live every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This morning he talked to us about gratitude, and not just, saying, oh, I'm so thankful for this, I'm so grateful for that, but following the why am I grateful? I am grateful for because, and bring some meaning into your gratitude. When you do that, that will help start to shift your perspective. So get into the habit of not only showing gratitude, but also thinking about what you're grateful for, because positive attracts positive. So you got to be careful here, right? Because the opposite holds true as well. Negative will attract negative. So having negative emotions just makes everything seem more negative. And then it becomes this vicious cycle that you can't get out of. The important thing to remember is that your emotions help determine your perspective. Remember that. In other words, if you can control your emotions better, the way you perceive things, you will control the way you see things. So speaking in negativity, the third thing you can do to help shift your perspective, I love this one. Distance yourself from sources of negativity in your life. We've all heard this before about surrounding yourself with people, and you are the average of the 5 closest people to you. We get that. But what maybe we don't get is how powerful the influence is of the people that we consistently surround ourselves with and are influenced by. Look how impactful all the influences of your entire life were to form the lenses through which you view your world already. That influence continues by the people you hang around. The space that you create by distancing yourself from negativity creates room for positive stuff, positive people, and positive situations. So I'm going to ask you guys, when was the last time you did an inventory of the people in your life, especially those you surround yourself with on a frequent basis? Ask yourself if their influence, is your interactions, is what you're seeing on social media from them, is it constant negativity or is it positive words of encouragement? Are there positive thoughts? Are they living a positive life, at least from your perspective? Because if they're leading what you believe to be positive, that's what you want to surround yourself with. Positive attracts positive. If every time you open up your Facebook page and there's a friend on there or even a family member who's always negative, then those are the people, unfortunately, that you need to distance yourself and create a void so you can open up that space to allow the positive things to enter in that space. So we're talking about purge, purging the negativity from your life. I just did this the other day. I think a lot of you probably saw the post I made on my personal Facebook page saying, hey, I'm spending some time cleaning up my friends list. And people were jumping on there like, oh my God, I hope I make the cut. Listen, you don't have to hope. Hope is not a method. All you have to do is add value, be a person of value, and be positive, and add positive vibes into the world, and you'll be on my friends list. If not, then sorry. Yeah, I just went through Facebook, and that was the lens. I was looking at the positive and negative influencers in my life, and that's the lens I used to decide who was staying and who was going. You can't have a positive perspective about things when you're surrounded by negative circumstances. Bottom line. Have you guys ever had a problem and the more you stressed and thought about it, the worse it got? If not, I have. So the more I thought about the problem and stressed over it, the more I felt like I was spiraling down this path of all the things that are going wrong, and nothing got fixed until I changed my perspective. Yeah, you can get into this negative spiral when you think in these patterns, when you stress and you just focus on the negative about a situation. But when you change your perspective and begin to think more positively, it's easier for you to clear your mind and start thinking about a solution and not get so overwhelmed with the problem. So that was the third thing that you can do. And then the last thing I was going to suggest to you is get clear. Yeah, that's number 4. Get clear. Take the lenses off and clean them. Get a cleaning rag. Get the smudges off your lenses and get clear. I'm talking about clarity of thought here. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. At least that's what Teddy Roosevelt said. See, I knew who said that one. Your beliefs are powerful, and they can steer you into the direction of your choice. But I think we've all grown up in a society where we've been conditioned on how we should live our lives, right? It doesn't matter what generation, if you're a millennial or a Gen Xer or a Gen Y, and I think they even have Gen Z now, or a member of the greatest generation ever to live. It doesn't matter. You don't have to live your life off of somebody else's script. You don't have to live life by what society dictates for you, right? In America, our society has created this mindset that we go to school and then we get, you got to find a spouse, get married, and then have children. Buy a house and then have children, right? This is what I'm talking about. You don't have to live that way. You can swim against the current. You can break away from the status quo. As a matter of fact, you owe it to yourself to do that. When you do that, it will help you shift your perspective of things. Because if you don't, then you really have the perspective of society and other people, right? You know, I've heard it said that our first reaction to something is how we are told to view the world. But the thoughts that come after are our own thoughts. Are you going to continue to think that you can't do something because the world told you so? Or are you going to wake up in the morning and say, I can and I will? Hold my beer, world. Watch this. It's time for a new perspective, and you have the power to shift it for yourself. There's only 4 things that I wanted to cover with you. Focus on the lesson and not the issue. That was number 1. The second thing was positive attracts positive. I've already talked to you about a positive mindset, and we can do that again if you want. Distance yourself from sources of negativity in your life, right? Was that the third thing? Yes. And then the 4th thing was get clear. All right, those are 4 quick and easy things that will get you on your way. Understand something, my friends. You can choose the way you see things, right? Your perspective. And when you start to choose the positive side, the silver lining, you'll start to notice positive things happening in your life. So change your perspective and change your life. Thank you guys for jumping in the Weekly Roar again this week. I love having you with me. Until next Wednesday, I hope you all have a great week. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy each other. Be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.